Good morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scousers Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser this morning on a Friday. And that's right, it's a reckless Friday. So reckless, Anand is not even here yet. We're hoping he's going to be able to join us soon. But John is here. John, what's happened?
Yeah, it's a very reckless Friday. Darwin Nunez with a brilliant performance, and Nanan is nowhere to be found. I wonder
Yes,
why.
I had prepped like a Thiago special. I guess I can
Right.
cancel that plan. But so what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? But
Yeah.
yeah, great game yesterday. Apart from the Konate ordeal, probably could not have gone any better.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, two brilliant Darwin goals. A little bit open at times. We talked about it
Yeah,
in the in the pre-match about killing off the game. That they did not give any indication that they wanted to kill off the game. But aside from the two Nunez goals, pretty great performance from McAllister, Mo Salah, Dominic Szoboszlai is back. So aside from the Konate injury, we're riding a pretty solid wave coming into Sunday, which you couldn't ask for anything more.
yeah. For like Konate, it looked like I should say
Right.
first. I was like, okay, he's gone, so probably will not come back until after the international break. Then the way Klopp talks about it, it's almost like maybe we'll see him against United. I just don't see him after something like that. The physio is saying, yeah, he should be good and start sprinting against City again. Because I guess he said something like, he felt something that he knew that if he sprints again, it's going to be gone. And obviously,
Yes.
yeah, so I don't see that in 2 days going away right away. Good morning, you handsome devil, says Ryan. Good morning. That's why Anan isn't here. So we only handsomes only today. That's like the thing. So Kelleher, Sir Z mentions it. I mean, dude, this has been probably such a year. That's why there should be more trophies in this year because when you look back at this season, it's not like the title winning season where we were just rolling and
Yeah.
everybody was rolling, not a lot of issues, some rotation, but not a lot. Even when we were up by like 85 points, it didn't feel like, we were all playing kids and stuff. You look back at this season, there are characters like Kelleher, Gomez, Kwanzaa, like Bradley, so many people that are like that were nowhere to be found, or we probably did not give a second to talk about in preseason, and now we're constantly talking about their contributions.
Yeah, it's Last Dance documentary worthy this season. If we manage to get it done, win a league title or win like a treble or whatever, yeah, it's probably gonna be up there with those kinds of documentaries. Yeah, you're right in saying that the title winning season, we barely had any setbacks. We had a complete lineup, barely any injury. Like
Yeah,
Allison was out for a bit, but our defense was so good. Like no matter how shit Adrian was, it would it would kind of be
yeah,
covered up. Yeah. So we had a pretty good squad there. Even Keita had some consistent performances because he was injury free. So a lot of things kind of have to go your way for you to win the title, but at the same time, those are once in a blue moon. So you kind of have to cope, and we have been coping so far, knock on wood. Big game on Sunday, but yeah, Tim, now that you mention it, it didn't really come across to me that there's so many storylines for this
yeah.
year that if you believe in fairy tales, which I don't, right? It's just really set up. It's I don't anymore. Fine. Let me put a caveat there. I don't anymore. Like as I keep saying, like as the longer I stay here in American Scouser, the longer, like the quicker the youthful ignorance just gets hammered out from me. So, yeah, if you believe in fairy tales, this season could be it, right? All those storylines. Wow.
Yeah, it's like Sergi says, a lot of, and I didn't even know, like, backup players like Kwanzaa, Bradley. I don't think
Mm,
we would consider them in the
right.
beginning of the season as, yeah, they're gonna have to step up. Like I could have seen us saying maybe like Gomez and stuff like that, and not even this much. Like I think we were basically saying like, he's gonna have to step in where we need him to be the right back and be that third, fourth center back and stuff like that. I mean, not in this capacity. We probably would never mention Bradley's name in preseason, I would think. Definitely not Kwanzaa's name in preseason. So for these players to come back afterwards and do what they're doing is really, really huge. Um, Uh, is it?
I
Fun
do not
fact.
know,
Fun
man.
fact that Goldilocks is based on real events. You'll prepare a documentary for us next week there on that one. But our fan base is going to be so insufferable if the season ends in a fairy tale. I'm before. I think so too, especially it being Klopp's last season and stuff like that. And I think, yeah, it's one of those years, man. I just don't want it to be. Getting one trophy was good, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's even would be much more special if we somehow are able to add a few more to it.
Yeah, for sure. Like obviously we had a failed, quadruple bid a few years ago. We're still kind of in the mix with it right now. But listen, taking it one game at a time, I feel, and I believe Bickler said it during the Monday podcast. Sometimes putting into perspective, we're in a very good position, but there is an element of kind of just like enjoying what's left. I feel like the sentimental value of it. Like obviously you'd want these guys to win everything as much as you can, but then regardless of what happens, I feel like it's also a celebration of
Yeah.
Klopp's time, this last stretch of the season, and we are seeing it. Thankfully, we are celebrating it on the pitch as well. For me, so I don't want to say that it doesn't matter to me if we don't win anything else, but then there's also a part of me that's like, this has been such a wild ride. I've enjoyed it so much that whatever happens, I'm gonna be happy. If that makes sense, because
Yeah.
yeah,
But
we're
is that
obviously gonna
because we already have one? Because I got into that mode once there was
right.
one in the bag. I was like, it's not an offer. We got one trophy at least.
Right. Obviously, you'd want to do much, much better than the
Oh yeah.
Carabao Cup. And like, don't take my words out of context here. I'd want us to win the Premier League, of course. I'd want us to win the Europa League and everything like that. But then we've pretty much won every trophy under the sun, and this is Klopp's final season and all of that. So, like I said, it's a celebration of everything that he's got us through, putting us back into our perch. We could
Yeah.
there are worse positions to be in, even if we don't win the trophies that we're going for this year. And obviously we might touch on it in the future shows where, Michael Edwards is being, talked on again by FSG and everything to become the sporting director. So we're pretty much set for the future. So now with kind of the future, somewhat set with the exception of a manager, we could just kind of focus what's in the present here and just enjoy the ride.
The thing with that is like, especially, I feel like, yeah, you look at the talents, but you just don't know how you're going to play, who's going to be the manager and stuff like that. So
Right.
there's still that, let's hope it all fits in when the new manager comes in thing. But
Edwards coming in
right.
is such a safety blanket, though, as we talk about a lot, right?
What is, I'm sorry?
Edwards coming in. If they manage to get him in, that's such a safety blanket, I feel. Yeah.
I think so. And I think, I don't know, like a lot of people, it's funny because when he was here, like you can never win with like anti-FSG people. So when he was here, and then like he was like, oh, it's all Edwards and stuff like that. And then when Edwards left, it was like, well, it was all Klopp anyway, so Edwards can go. Well, I mean, which one is it? So I think it was like a good combination. You had a manager who could make the most out of everything, and you had somebody who could get people in that the manager really, really wanted, and get people that manager could actually work with. So I'm definitely totally okay with that. Look who's in the comments. Anan is in the comments. He's at work and it's not so reckless. He says, I would argue that having Anan in charge of people at a workplace is just totally reckless by itself, but that's a different story. So
I assumed he was still having a hangover from drinking after that Darwin performance, honestly. There we go. On cue.
On cue. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. He was, it was some like Greg, who's one of our OG followers on American Scouser, like way back in they started. He actually like messaged me this morning and he said, remember like the last game, I think it was the last game where Nunez and Guardiola got into it after the final whistle and stuff like that. Klopp had to come in between and all that. He was asking me, do you think like that will be like a motivator for like Nunez to go out and like get a hat trick against him and stuff? And honestly, I have no idea, because I don't think we've figured out this dude yet. Every time we think we figured him out, he does something like score these ridiculous goals, miss a sitter, get a stupid yellow card. Like I'm not able to say. I know there are a lot of players you are like, we can speculate like Mo would do this or Van Dijk would
Right.
do that and stuff like that. I just have no idea with this dude.
Yeah, it's like it's like he's like one of those financial graphs, right? That measures performance. That's like here and then here and then here and then here. Because like literally, we started the season saying, "Oh, he's getting 30 goals a season easy," and then we kind of reached the first quarter, and he's like, "Oh, he's fucking shit." And then the second and the third one, he's like, "Oh, all he does is pass. He never scores." And then now he's scoring all these bangers. So like, he's such an enigma of a player that you don't even know what you're gonna get from him, and that's a good thing. I believe it's been a good thing because we're still in every competition. We're still top of the league, and he's having a pretty good season for a player.
But not knowing what you're gonna get out of him, is that a good thing?
Well, so far, Tim, like how many goals does he have? Shame Anon isn't here. He would know the number to the letter, but how many goals and assists does he have this year? It's a pretty good
I mean, his performance has not been bad, but us
Right.
not being able to see, like, Matteo says it can be a motivator or a deterrent. Yeah, I mean, it could be something where he's cranking like really ridiculous shots out of not, just to do that. I just don't know if he would do that. Like, I don't see Mo as somebody like that, for example. Is it because we've seen a lot more of a player compared to Nunez?
Yeah, and Mo is 30 something. Right. Nunez is around 20-ish. Still very young, still very eager.
How you're appreciating the older maturity now, man.
I was like, I was leading there. I was like, Nunez is still young, still very eager, still has that stars in his eyes, waiting for it to be hammered away by some older guys showing him the reality of the situation. But yeah, I digress. so yeah, if Nunez can, this is always with the conversation with Nunez, right? If he can find that consistency, if he can find what you're talking about, the regular stuff that he does, which obviously at his position should be scoring goals, then we have a player. We really have a player, because we always talk about it, and obviously it gets a lot of slack. When is this potential going to come in? When is he going to start being consistent? The tools are there. And right now, I don't want to tempt fate here. Those two goals just showed you what a prime Nunez can do, which is, I haven't seen goals like that scored in the box since maybe Torres, Suarez. That's just what he has in there.
First one, I give a lot to the goalie, right? I mean, that's it. I mean, it's a great shot and everything, but most goalies should do better. But the second one is, I mean, it's almost like there's no way of saving that.
But then, Tim, who in the past would have the audacity to take that first shot in the first place?
But see, it's so fun in games when it's a goal. And we already have the lead. I think there's like a comfort of that, right? Where otherwise, if he's cranking that shot, like not the first one you cut in, you shoot, that's fine. He's done that before. But the second one, for example, if he shoots and it goes sky high and it was 0-0 or something like that, you can see a lot more of the reaction would be like, well, you didn't have to, like, not at that angle and stuff, like, you know what I mean? It would be criticized and looked at a lot more. Whereas, but he's a striker similar to Mo in that sense, where he does take some shots that are like, but it goes in, or that's part of being a striker kind of thing. See, Sergi says, if you don't know what we're going to get, opposition have no chance of knowing how to play against them. That's not the when I say we can't predict what he's going to do, that's not what I mean. Like Sadio had that. Like, I think Diaz has a little bit of that, where he doesn't even know where he's going to go. Like with Sadio, you didn't know where the hell he was going to go. And that makes it very hard to defend. Similar to Mo now, like I think that Mo uses that as an advantage to create a lot of goals, because people don't know where he's going to go, so that he has a lot more space than another player would, because they're afraid that he can suddenly cut inside, go outside, take him to the line, he can go anywhere. So he gets the space and he can pass the ball and distribute and stuff. He's used that and that. But I mean, that's like the biggest thing to me, is not that predictability. That's good. If you're not predictable in that sense, that's good. My thing is, I don't know if he's going to. This is what I can predict, and I can predict with Mo, for example. If you get under Mo's skin, right, before a game, talk shit or something like that, similar to what we're talking about Nunez over here. At worst, I can see Mo maybe over trying, taking some shots he should not have and stuff like that. I do not worry that he's gonna, slight tackle as he's pressing and get a red card or something like that from, he's gonna slight tackle Diaz or something like somebody like that, or Kevin De Bruyne or something like that and get a red card. I don't have that concern with a player like Mo. I do have that with Nunez. So I mean, who give better? There you go, Mr. Statsman. The only time you can get any info or fact from Anan is whether it's
great numbers, though.
Yeah,
it's great numbers.
16 goals, 11 assists, and a lovely stat for me: 10 yellow cards, and that's the part that is. You got to get to maturity. You got to get rid of those. If you're going to get those yellow cards, get it like Mo and Bobby for taking your shirt off after a goal. So we can all celebrate the yellow card with you as well. But that's what when I say not predictable, I guess that's the part I'm talking about.
Yeah, and to be fair to him, that kind of comes with age. Like, he's still 24, still very, like I said, still starry in the eyes and everything.
But I know you're like, what are you, 25? So you consider 24?
Yeah. He's still very young. I'm 25. He's 24. He's still very young. I always tell my sister, who's like 23, like, she's still a baby. So, like, even though she's like a few years, younger than me. But, yeah, I feel like with him, this is something that we're just gonna have to live with right now. There are gonna be those instances, but I feel like as he gets older, as he gets more talking tos from the club, from our future manager, from even Alexis McAllister, who's probably like his most frequent communicator on the pitch. Probably him and Diaz are the ones talking to him, telling him to calm down. I feel like that'll come eventually, as he's. Like last year, we weren't really in a title race, so he wasn't really exposed to the stakes. But now with this year, where we're in a title race, where everything just counts so much more, I feel like whatever happens this year, I feel like Darwin is going to come out a better player, mentally and skill-wise, being through a title race, being given that experience, and that's probably going to sort of shape that diamond into something more refined into next year and years to come. Which is great, because like we're saying, you just have to give him time. You have to give him the run of games. And so far, as Anan was saying, was at 16 goals and 11 assists in all comps, and the season isn't even finished. That's very good numbers. You take those from your striker all day long. And mind you, he hasn't started all of those games, which adds to that.
Yes, that's true. Anan says that's you're going passion. Look at Suarez, a madman with a great player. I don't know if you want to give the entire nation a bad name of being crazy, but Chris says too, they're definitely similar to Suarez unpredictability. I mean, at least he's not going around like biting people and shit like that. But chaos personified. I mean, I think that's the thing. We are getting a striker that we were hoping to get out of him. I mean, that second goal. Is similar to his shots in like the Newcastle game and stuff like that. That is what you want out of that striker. Aside from, like I say, what I really like about him is even when he's not producing like numbers, goals, assists, and stuff like that, his work rate and the pressing he does and the effort he puts in and his attitude. There are a lot of strikers that mope a lot more when the numbers are not there. And he does not have that, which is what I like. What I probably like about him the most, really, as a player, is the fact that he goes 100 miles an hour regardless of what the end result is, and that's more of a team player. You don't get that a lot, so that part of him is like mature in terms of like keeping his head still in the game. I just hope like he seems like a player that sometimes you have these players that is a bit easier to get under the skin of, right? And he seems like that guy at times, but then again, we only saw that a couple of times. I just wish he wouldn't get the stupid yellows. And yes, I mean, ultimately, he's only getting better. And I think, like similar to what Chris was saying earlier, I think we are starting to get the striker that we were hoping to get from him. So Chris, by the way, is back in the UK, joining us from there. And good time to bring this up because actually, Chris was the birth father of Patreon way back in the day. It was kind of set up, but we didn't have all the content ready and stuff to go with it. But now we freaking do. And shout out to Alan Walnuts over here, who did sign up for the Patreon. I think it was on Wednesday. So thanks a lot, Alan. That's part of your our shout outs. And then he's going to get a swag come that way as well. Thanks to Gordo. We were talking about it on Wednesday. The dollar Shave Club month is over there as well, so that you can at least get a taste of some of the content in there. If you don't want to totally dive in, you can kind of like dip your toes in. But the water is great. Come on in. There are obviously other tiers as well, and as you sign up for higher tiers, there's more content.
Just be ready to sacrifice your hopes and dreams, because the naivety is going to be hammered out of you. Just a word of warning.
But yeah, we actually, so far, the gaming, there's like a tactical board episode coming up. We're about to record the first episode of an Irishman, a Scouser, and the Turk. I don't know which order those are going to be, but either way, that's what we're recording. Like I say, the tactics board one is coming out, and I think we're going to be recording more gaming content later on with Matusha. Matusha has been practicing, and that's like the best part of it, because that game was new to us, but he's doing some research in the background. He sent me some videos and stuff. So this week we're coming up with a lot more knowledge too, so we'll see how that goes. On the topic of Nunez, speaking of the devil, on the topic of Nunez and fairy tales, let's say we have our Aguero moments on the last day. Which player would you love having that moment? Mo, Nunez, Gomez, or somebody else? I think we've been talking about Gomez for so long,
Right.
But I don't know, like not necessarily might not be on the pitch. So who would you go? That's a really good question.
Yeah, the thing with Gomez, it's kind of like that deal where you talk about it so much it's not gonna happen. So I have that feeling with Gomez. Obviously Nunez, as Anand puts here, Nunez sounds so good. Like Peter Jury commentary, Nunez at the death for number 20 sounds so great. But I'm gonna have a low-key shout out here to Trent. A Trent banger, or maybe a Trent free kick, maybe to win it, would be just so fitting. In terms of, obviously we're gonna touch on his comments and everything, but yeah, for me, Trent, probably Nunez or Trent.
But on the last day,
yeah,
would it? So you okay?
Yeah,
man, I'm like Gomez. Yes, I mean, I think if he's on the pitch and if I'm picking a guy, it would definitely be Gomez.
Allison Heather. Oh dear.
I would actually go with the Van Dijk Heather.
Yeah,
I would go with Van Dijk, especially this season. I think the way he's played, the way he's led, and I think that would mean a lot to him to be able to lift a bunch of trophies in his first year as captain and stuff like that. But I'm glad you brought that up. So let's kind of talk about that a little bit, because this came out. Let's see. Here we go. So we shared this too. It was, I don't know if you watched the interview. It's really scary to watch, by the way, for people like me in terms of Trent's future at midfield, because there was a lot of questions regarding that and him talking about his role,
Thank
playing
God
kind
I
of
didn't
getting into
watch it.
midfield and stuff like that. I literally had a bucket next to me. I kept throwing up every time he was talking about that. But this is more about the city conversation that's really going on right now, in terms of him saying our trophies will mean more to us and our fan base because of the situations at both clubs financially. I think so, like, you can look at this two ways. I honestly think in the background, he's not saying they're spending more money and we're not. Because if you really still think that Liverpool is not spending money by looking at the wage bill and some of the players we've signed, you're in denial, or I don't know what the hell you're looking at.
Tim,
but legally spending money,
right?
I think is more what he's talking about,
Yes.
like spending what is allowed, not spending shit that should not have been spent in the first place.
Yeah, and Trent is kind of echoing what the entire fan base thinks. Like, no matter, like, let's be real, City's great, they're great, but then you have to question the integrity of how their club was constructed through the years. Like, is this even within the financial fair play? And there's a reason why they're being charged 115 charges. So yeah, Trent's not wrong. Totally agree with him. The Liverpool spending, yes, we spend a lot, but then, as with any business spends, but then they spend what they earn. And then that's why you go into what's called net spend, right? How much do you spend from what you earn, which is, the best run businesses, they make sure that isn't too high, or you're essentially spending what you're making. So yeah, for me, it's a totally reasonable comment. And obviously those Man City fans who are pretty insecure about their whole thing, who just want a treble, honestly, if I was a Man City fan, I would just be like, whatever, we just want a treble, say what you want. Like, I feel like the security should be there at this point, because the last 6-7 years, there's only been one other league title winner, and then that's us, right?
Yeah.
So listen, they've done everything. The legality obviously is in question, but it is what it is. And I do agree with him. Our league title, I feel like, is much, much more valuable than any of those league titles that they won, because there's always going to be an asterisk, right?
Especially, well, if and when
Yeah.
all these violations are looked at, and if something comes out of it, I think that's going to be where, when we look back, I'll be too old. I probably will be dead, but you'll be an older man, so you can look back and at these years and say, we were the only team that's. I mean, I think it shows a lot where we have no concerns about FFP or anything like that. Like, oh, I hope this doesn't come up and stuff. Where all these teams around us are concerned about it. They can't sign anybody in the summer. They're gonna have to unload some people and stuff like that. Whereas we're sitting over here, just almost like with no concern. Sparky says Trent should just keep his mouth shut and concentrate on being a better defender. To be fair to Trent, which he should concentrate on being a better defender. But to be fair, though, I mean, it was just like an interview, and he was asked, and he just answered. So it was
And
like,
my thing is he wrong? No. I don't think he's wrong.
No, but I don't know. There are some things that you don't have to say and let it speak for itself in some ways. But he was asked. It's not like he, stepped out of the podium and said, by the way, and then just like spilled it out. He was kind of like asked about it, and he answered. He was asked a lot about like playing in midfield, how he took it, what the adjustment was, and does he like it better? And Trent is like, he always he felt he was good enough to be a midfield player, and that was his thing and stuff. And yeah, it was really, really concerning, because it was basically everything that we talked about is that we teased this kid for being a midfielder. Now he's totally forgotten about being a right back, kind of an ordeal. But and I don't know, do you think it's kind of comes in a bit more hollow because he's not even going to play on Sunday?
Yeah, a little bit. Like there is an element of going like, all right, Trent, you're running your mouth here, but then you're not going to be playing on Sunday, so we're not going to be able to back it up. You're essentially putting more pressure on the lads to back up your big mouth. That's the only downside I saw, from those comments. Obviously, big game at Anfield is going to help us out, but it would have been more appropriate. Like, again, listen, I agree with his comments 100%, but
yeah,
great for you pointing that out, Tim. Like, it would have been more appropriate to be running your mouth here, but then you being able to back it up on the pitch, you being available to play.
Yeah.
So that's probably the only negative I'd take from it.
And again, it's definitely not his fault. I mean, he's doing an interview and he's being asked these questions and he's answering them. You could argue that the timing or him accepting to do the interview and stuff like that in a time where he's out, and I mean, he's out for like another 2-3 weeks at the minimum. So you could argue that maybe and say, that was not good timing to do that interview. But honestly, like 442 is the one that did it. And I don't know if you guys follow that, there's like really good tactical analysis on there after games and stuff like that. So it was more tactical moving forward about the midfield and stuff like that. They were talking a lot more about those because obviously the channel is more focused on that stuff. But so it's not his fault that it came up. You can argue that, you know what, why don't you just focus on the treatment right now? It would be like Thiago. I guess that's really far out there because he's always in the physio room, but it would be almost like I mean, the timing was down to 442, says Sir Z, but you need somebody at the end of the microphone on the other side. If the other person doesn't show, it doesn't matter if 442 has the studio, has pause. Oh, it was supposed to come out later. I mean, come on now.
Okay.
Media, if you trust
that. Well, imagine if it came out later, right? And Man City beat us, and then he said that. Then actually, you know what? That would have been more appropriate, I feel. Kind of like coping in a bad way, right? Like Man City beat us, they probably have the driver's seat in the title race, and Trent goes like, "Well, our titles mean more anyway." It seems more fitting, right?
Yeah, that would be a bit more bitter, though, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Well, again, he's not wrong, but then we're Liverpool.
He's definitely not wrong. I mean, he's not wrong in what he's saying. And honestly, like, I don't think he even exactly means that. I think everybody else. This is something to ask about. Actually, our panel on Wednesday. That's like a good talking point, because I think most of the league sees it that way as well. If it was not Liverpool, right, I think more people will be on the board with this. There's a built-in, because of your success, when a team is successful over time, that's why there are Liverpool haters out there. That's why there are United haters out there. Like, if your team is regularly successful, you're gonna have more haters down the road, right? Because there's more butthurt coming along the way
Right.
over the
There's a
decade.
reason. There's a reason why everyone didn't want Arsenal to win last year, because it would mean more. Because
Yeah.
they built their team from the ground up. They went through absolutely shit and embarrassing seasons under Arteta, and now it's actually finally starting to come together. So if they actually won it last year, it would have meant 100 times more than Man City's title last year. Let me
And I
just say
think
that.
that's what I mean. More people are probably rooting against it. Either one, you don't want this to be like freaking
Right.
the French league where the same team wins all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And B, I think everybody knows. Like, I mean, it's like the elephant in the room, right? Everybody knows. And I think if it was like Villa going against City in a title race or something like that, everybody, the entire league would be on board. I think you have some built-in bias against some of the top teams. I mean, I don't know if I have a hate against
No,
Arsenal,
I don't hate
like,
Arsenal.
as a
Yeah.
default. I have a hate against Arteta.
Yeah, Arteta's like, but then the Arsenal team, the way that they conducted themselves, especially under
Yes, I
Wenger.
mean, they have
Yeah.
whiny Jesus and stuff. It's not a
Yeah.
likable team. Yeah, it's not. I don't know about hate. It's definitely not a likable team.
But
I
then
would
in
find
terms
it
of
hard to.
how they went about their business, Tim. I mean, they spent money, sure, but then who doesn't spend money, like you said, right? And obviously they're doing it within the parameters of financial fair play. They stuck with their young guns, Martinelli, Saka,
Yeah.
so on and so forth, and now they actually have a team, right? So
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The history part is where I mean, that's, I think, why. And let's face it, some of it is success, right? Success in the past, and then you automatically. That's why I think there's, like, a lot of people who like love to hate on Liverpool, love to hate on United. I mean, some teams that have success in the past. I mean, the City thing, for example, I don't think City would even be relevant if they weren't spending this money that are not within the rules and stuff like that. They don't have that many. There are not a lot of built-in City haters. Like, like 10
there
years
aren't even
ago,
any
you
there
didn't
aren't
have
any
anybody.
built-in.
I don't remember anybody saying, I can't
Right.
stand City, man. Like, I never even heard that. Whereas all the other teams you still had. So no one outside of us wanted Liverpool to win it. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, though. I think a lot of clubs can say that. I think City didn't have built-in haters compared to other teams. Yes, they wouldn't be. I mean, it's just basically that goes back to what Sparky is saying. It's all about basically like the history part of it. But let's talk about, as we go into Sunday, let's talk a little bit about that. I don't know if it is just Sparky says, are just like the rich, noisy neighbors, and you're waiting for the cops to come in and eventually write a ticket or whatever. God knows why it's taking so long. But okay, Sunday, I don't know if it's just me. I don't have as much of a finality feel in this game as I would in the past, because I still think City will lose points. So I don't see it as, if we lose, we're out kind of a thing. And at the same time, I don't feel like if we win, we win kind of a thing. Whereas in the past, you would have.
Yeah, I'm just looking at our schedule right now. Sure, if we win, all right, let's start on the positive note, right? If we win, it's not the be all end all, because we still have some very tough games. We literally go to Man United away on April the 7th. We play West Ham away, which is still a tough game, April 27th.
You still have Spurs, you still have Villa, right?
Yeah, we have Spurs at home. We have we start West Ham away, right? Right after that is Spurs home, and then Villa away. Right. So, yeah, there we go. Still some pretty tough games to play. Even if we win the City game, you said they drop points. We can also still drop points. Bar some unforeseen, like how awful we've been in terms of luck with injuries this year. So it's not the be all end all. Obviously, the ideal result would be to get a result, but same thing for them. Like, if they win, it's not 100% set in stone, because there's still that big game between them and Arsenal, right? So where hopefully both can take points off of each other. So as much as this is being hyped to be the decider, Pep and Club's final game, which is true to an extent, there's still some wiggle room afterwards, I would say.
Yeah, and I know there were like a lot of, like, if you look at the press conference of Klopp, there's a lot of questions about him, obviously, compared to Pep and stuff like that. And I think there is like a mutual respect there. I almost feel like both managers realize that, the other one has some qualities that are probably they're better at. And then,
Probably, yeah.
vice versa, kind of an ordeal. There's like a mutual respect there. You can really kind of tell. There's some fake respect you can tell in front before games. But I get the sense that there's actually a lot more like mutual respect over there between these two guys before and after games and in press conferences and when they're outside of like the gaming environment and stuff like that. But and Arsenal play Brentford tomorrow at home. I don't know. Brentford is that team that is can make some like really stupid defensive errors after playing well. So I don't know how much hope we have over there. But
yeah, and it's Arsenal at home. They've been dissecting teams lately, which is I think excellent. Yeah, which is excellent in terms of their approach to City, right? Like if they're on such a good run of form, that City game makes it much more interesting in terms of deciding the title balance. City is on good form as well, right? They've been playing well, really well. So yeah, I think I'm looking ahead too far, but then it's just an interesting.
I mean, if we win this on Sunday, I mean, then you're really hoping City beats Arsenal, they take something away from them, and you can be in, then you're like, wow, now we're talking kind of a thing because we get some other games. But I felt, I was talking about it on Monday, like it's a huge, huge week in terms of like some of the games we have, talking about like a quad. I felt like we got one out of the way. So you're kind of like continuing in that lane, full speed. This will be another one where I don't know. Doesn't have that same finality, and obviously then you have the United. And what was huge about yesterday, I think, is the fact that now you can do whatever the hell you want next Thursday and rest against United, and you don't have to play in like a 3-day rest and stuff like that. So that one looks a lot better. I really feel like if we're at even 70-80% of capacity going against United, I don't care where the game is, I trust that we will do well, even though we don't always play well at Old Trafford, even in peak days. But that curse kind of like got away, and we had some like huge wins, like the 5-0 was over there and stuff like that too. So I feel a lot more confident about that. It's like the Sunday one, and I know midfield. Let's talk about a little bit about this dude over here. I mean, we best midfielder conversation, right? That we had months ago, and at the time, because of form and stuff like that, we said Jones was probably our best midfielder at the time. And that's another thing, like he's the forgotten man right now. He was our best midfielder at one point, and he's missing in action as well for another couple of weeks. I mean, this dude is, I was saying it yesterday, and I wanted to say it today to Anand's face, but unfortunately he's not here. He is everything there he is. The eyes are here. He's everything that Thiago should have been, or we wanted Thiago to be. The calmness of the ball, the distribution, ball winning, the maturity, how he can slow things down, how he can speed things up, control the pace of the game. He's everything that I think I wanted Thiago to be when we first signed him.
Yeah, he's I think, we talk about Jones, we talk about Szoboszlai, back to our conversation a few months ago. I feel like he's the best, he's the best of both worlds, if that makes sense, because he can press, he can contribute a lot to attack, driving forward, hit a long one here and there, kind of like Szoboszlai could. He can press as well as Jones. I think Jones is still a better presser, but Maka can press pretty well too.
Yeah.
Technically, he's very sound, and in terms of his composure on the ball, probably better than Szoboszlai, probably better than Jones, considering his experience. And you can put him in all those three positions, left 8, right 8, even a 6, as we know, and he'd give you like at least a 7 out of 10. So, well, Anand says Sobo is the sexier version. I mean, that's up to interpretation right there. But then, yeah, literally, best midfielder conversations. I feel like we have such a good lineup of midfielders that it could genuinely change month to month.
Oh, I thought you were going to be like Gravenberg.
Well, yeah, I was going to go to that. We're not even putting my boy Gravenberg into conversation here. We have such a great roster of midfielders, like compared to last year where we were saying, oh, the midfield is, and technically it really was the glaring problem. It's such a 180 from last year, and I'm all for it.
And I think Endo obviously coming along and being the 6 we need.
Right, and I forgot about Endo.
Yes, I mean, it has really helped, Maka, but I think that is what makes him the best midfielder and the most valuable midfielder right now is the fact that he can play all those positions. So you can put him at 6. And then we were evaluating him as a 6 playing out of position, and it was pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And I think, like the Jones debate at the time he was our best midfielder at the time in form.
Yeah, to be fair, the numbers that McAllister...
system,
yeah.
Right? I mean, understanding the system, his performance overall, the consistency, I guess, more than anything else, he was there. And I don't know. I think earlier somebody was talking about our best midfield. If everybody is healthy right now, who is your best midfield? No form. Not going on a form. Let's just go make it a well, I don't want to say FIFA, but Football Manager lineup here. Our best midfield right now in the system.
Endo, McAllister, Szoboszlai.
Okay.
I feel like there's as much as I love Jones, not having McAllister on the pitch is a crime at this point.
Yes.
So like obviously we can't drop him for Szoboszlai as well, who's obviously the most adventurous of those 3 if we put those 3 on the field. And Endo is a must because those 2 get to do what they do knowing that they have the security there. And our back line, our super risky style is always better with a true defensive midfielder. And yeah, Anon saying there you go, because I know for a fact that he's been the proponent of that midfield for the longest time when we were still having McAllister, Jones, Szoboszlai, and all of that. So, yeah, I would say our best midfield is something that has a true 6 and that has Szoboszlai and McAllister. As good as Endo is, like, not to be nitpicky here, he's really great, but he can still be upgraded on the summer. He's 31, probably he's got 2 good years left in him before his legs go. That's the scary part because we already have these 2 8s here. We already have a serviceable DM. Next year, whoever comes in, probably get that Endo depth, right? That 6 depth. Having Endo coming in as a sub and then having a starting 6, our midfield is going to be set for years. That's what really encourages me.
Yeah, I am kind of like torn on that because then do you want to be able to? So it becomes a Jones versus Endo thing to me, as opposed to a Jones versus Szoboszlai thing.
You mean you'll have Jones at the 6?
In terms of like having, and then you can do the Maka at 6 so that you are still having all 3 of them on the pitch kind of thing.
I don't want McAllister's legs to go quickly, Tim. If you put him at the 6 a lot, I feel like we should nail him to that left or right-sided 8 position in the future because we had to put him as a 6 out of necessity this year and as Endo was trying to get accustomed to the game. I feel like we should lock him down there and have Jones to be his depth. Because let's face it, next year we're probably qualifying for the Champions League. So we're going to have first teamers. We're going to want to have first teamers on the pitch at all times. So I think playing time is not going to be an issue for Jones.
Yeah.
Playing time isn't going to be an issue for Harvey, right? Because I see if we're going to make a midfield depth chart, right, it's probably going to be Sobo on the right, first choice. His backup's probably going to be Harvey there.
Yeah,
Maka on the left side of the 8. His backup's probably going to be Jones. And then that hypothetical top young 6, and then Endo. Gravenberch is like a plug and play. Like, because we don't know.
Okay, I was like, you forgot someone.
Yeah, as much as it pains to admit it, like we don't know how Gravenberch is going to acclimatize to the new manager, and we don't know what skill set he could bring consistently yet. So he's kind of like a plug and play guy on that left or right side. So he's kind of like the third piece there.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like hard to figure out, what the future will bring because we don't know what formation we will play. I mean, if you do a double pivot, maybe you do use Gravenberch there. Or maybe you do Endo and Mac. And I think, Endo, I feel like, yes, you will have, Endo will be your future Milner in terms of coming in midfields and, like relieving the 6 of his duties and stuff like that, and can fill in as a 6 if you need him and stuff like that. And he has that maturity to basically, and knowing he's kind of like done it all. This is the end. He's not going to be a player that says, well, I don't want to be here. I'll just go and, start at Brighton or something. He's going to be content with that role, knowing he's at Liverpool. He's done it all. He's here. He's going to win trophies. He's going to contribute and stuff like that. I think he will be content with that and be mature about that. I think he was even okay with his role prior, or maybe he knew that once he got a run of games, that he would be out there and get more used to the Premier League pace and stuff like that. I think that has been like the biggest thing, is his adjustment to the pace.
Yeah, for sure. And for a stopgap, this is just like, I know we've had some great bargain buys. We've had Matip on a free, Milner on a free. You could argue Salah for 35 million is a massive bargain,
Yeah.
right? Considering what he's given. Same with Mane at like 30 million coming from Southampton, considering what we won with him. But Endo's probably right up there with me, especially considering like we didn't know who he was coming in. Like, oh, everyone was like, who? And then now he's like, in best midfielder conversations. This just speaks to how Klopp can make the most out of a player. Like, everyone knows, like, okay, there's two things. There's desire and then there's talent. Like, Endo has a little bit of both, mostly on the desire part, and I feel like Klopp has kind of learned how to maximize him as much as he can in terms of like his best qualities, which is the ball winning and then the experience and everything. But I say this with all due respect to Endo, I feel like we still have to get a top 6 next year, a young 6 that we could develop a la Declan Rice or something. Because
it could be an interesting offseason, because I go back to what Klopp was saying in that press conference. I think after the League Cup, because like Brian brings up like Tyler Morton, who's kind of like the forgotten man because he's not here right now, but
Chetic as well.
Yes, and I think he was kind of like talking about, I hope people remember this in the offseason when the transfer thing is here. Because as you bring these people in, that means you're sending these kids out, or you're selling some of these kids. And let's face it, some of these kids might not be good enough to play for Liverpool long term. And some of them, yes, you will probably capitalize on and get some money on. But it's going to be interesting to see which ones we do keep and which, like McConnell. I really like McConnell normally, like overall. I mean, Clark, I like what I've seen out of him and stuff. And here's another thing, like, you don't know how these guys will go from, being kids to men, if you will, go through that growth and like physically get bigger and stronger and stuff like that. But sometimes that's a bonus to your game. Sometimes that can be a detriment to your game, depends on how you play, right? So it's going to be interesting to see. We'll be like, there you go, Gomez.
Stop it, Cersei.
Long-term
Stop it. Stop it, Cersei. You're the positive guy, I know, but Gomez, come on. No, it's a no for me.
I don't know. The dude played there like once, and out of nowhere, never playing it, and wasn't too shabby.
Really? You're the one who said that our press was all over the place against that in that game.
But that was because of the front line, not because, defensive midfielder, he's more sweeping up the press.
I guess, but
passing lanes. The front three were all over the place in that press.
I understand him. Yeah, but then you see, we have 3 tiers here. We have Gomez at right back. He looks really comfortable, right? Which is probably for me his best position now. We have Gomez at left back. Kind of shaky, unfamiliar, but then he still does a great job. He still looks assured at times, although he has the odd moment where he's like, I'm a right footer playing on the left side kind of a deal. But then he still gets the job done. And then we have Gomez at defensive midfielder for me, where he's at the center of the park being pressed by opposition, where he looks sometimes like a deer in the headlights, passing it back, rushed. I don't know. I'm not for it. I would rather have Trent. If we're talking about defenders being placed into a DM position, Trent all day over Gomez for me.
I'm not gonna get suckered into this conversation, but yeah, the key.
This is me holding up the
DM
is waiting for Tim to take it.
What does DM stand for?
Sorry,
what does DM stand for?
Defensive midfielder, but then
I rest my case.
Right, but then if Liverpool have 90% of the ball, Tim, you'd want to have someone who's probably there spraying out those passes alongside the McAllisters. Listen, it's been...
But, that's like you're making a FIFA lineup. We're trying to score goals, so you probably want to put Nunez at left back and put a lineup who can score goals. You have to have specialty for people.
My thing going for that argument is Klopp has used it in situational purposes. Right. So it has crossed his mind. And obviously the fact that Trent is drumming up the midfield conversation means that he sees a position for himself there
but never a defensive mid. That's what I think. Like if I see
I
Trent at all at midfield, it will be like 8, like
a
some other
double well in a double pivot, I feel like he'd be fine. That's two
players.
DMs in a 4-2-3-1.
Risky
Yeah,
business.
like if you have a let's say you do Endo and Trent defense in a 4-2-3-1. You do Endo and Trent. I feel like that's pretty workable throughout the season.
Yeah, ask Endo. We'll see what the hell he thinks.
well, listen.
Yeah, because you're not going to be the one defending there, John. Is probably what Endo is going to say.
I don't know. I'm banging this drum because I feel like it's just an inevitability at this point.
I think if anything, it would be like an 8 because, like Sparky says, he's lazy defending. But here's another thing that I don't think comes into play, especially, I mean, if you guys don't even get a chance, listen to the full interview because I hear a guy, he doesn't say it, but I hear a guy who has this in his mind playing that role, playing in midfield. And then he would want to take, I mean, if he played midfield in the position that he feels like he should be in, he would give what that position really wants. Not the characteristic or character you want out of a player. I understand that. But that's what I hear as he talks in that interview, which is why I had the bucket next to me. But I think, that's what is concerning. But at the same time, I think if he's going to... Ellen says, look who's talking.
Listen, when Trent moves into midfield a season from now or 2 seasons from now, I will be there, people. I will be there.
Yeah, if he's playing defensive midfield, I will be here asking you, why do you think we're conceding so many goals? How come? And then it's going to be like, our center backs look so bad because they have 5 people coming at them with no defensive midfielder protecting them is what's going to happen. But for this weekend, we don't have to worry about Trent apart from his quotes.
Why do I feel like before we move on to the next topic, Tim? Like, why do I feel like you're the most relieved here that Trent isn't playing in terms of Sunday? Like, as much as we love him, and this is me conceding, right? This is me admitting to his faults. The fact that he talked so much shit there, only to get burned by Doku, maybe on the back post or something, kind of makes you happy that possibility is not available, right? Like,
yeah, honestly, defensively, I think we are better. Obviously, you miss his critical passing and stuff like that. I mean, dude is a great player. I mean, it's not like I'm like we should get rid of Trent, but dude is a great player. He just has to improve defensively. And if you're like if you're still saying that he's great defensively, you're not watching him. You're not watching the game. You don't know what defense is what my thing. He sucks defensively, and it's laziness defensively, I think, is what gets to me. You might not be a great defender, but if you're lazy, if you're bad because you're lazy, and in most cases that is his case, because his following, tracking back, it's focus on defending. I guess I think his focus is more on attacking and creating and stuff like that. So you do miss that you would get from him, but right. I think defensively, I mean. Just think about the last 4 or 5 games. I don't remember that diagonal going there. And every time we played a team, that diagonal went to our right side of our defense where somebody would get the ball on the left-hand side, whoever their left wing is. And either Trent is not there or he just like literally walks by Trent, who's just jogging back. And then, we're in danger. We don't get that now. As attacking as Bradley can be. He wasn't great yesterday, by the way, but still you get that from, and he's not as good physically and stuff like that. I get that. He's still a kid, but I feel a bit more safer that he's going to kind of stop that. We've kind of taken that away from teams, I think, over the last 4 or 5 games that I watched. That diagonal right hand side of our defense.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that in a few minutes, I'm sure. Who would you have as right back there? Because as good as Bradley's been, I'm a bit nervous to him, in terms of the prospect of him going against, Doku and Grealish are out. So as he said, thankfully, as people
out. I didn't know Doku was out.
Yeah, I didn't know Doku was out either. Like I know Grealish was out, which is great for us. Which I know people hate on Grealish, but he's a great player. So, so who's going to be playing left wing? Foden?
Socks, that gets me, man. I can't do low socks. It just helped me. It just says kick me as a defender when I see low socks.
Right. So who's going to be playing left wing? Foden? Or I said Sterling for some. I thought Sterling for some reason. Dude's been in a sky blue shirt the longest time. Whenever I see him wearing that Chelsea blue, I'm just like, what the fuck is he doing there? He looks so out of place. Seriously.
So
Like,
this is Bradley scored a great goal. Yeah, that was like a shin kick. I've been there,
yeah.
you know, like you try to do something and then it just you miss it, then you kick it with the shin and it ends up being like an excellent shot. Been there, done that. I don't know. I think that was one thing, right? Gomez coming out was almost a sign that
Yes.
maybe he's gonna be the one starting. And I'm not opposed against it. Either way, I think it's more of a defensive move anyway.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at the lineup here that they played against Man United. So if Doku is out, Grealish is out. Who are they going to play on the left? Probably
Is
Foden.
it Bob?
Bob, maybe.
Bob. I
Yeah,
think that's who was playing. I think in the Champions League game. I didn't watch the full game. I just looked at it for like 5 minutes or so, and he looked like it was on the left wing, but it could have been just like when I tuned in. So
yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm talking about the right side. Which, if we had Gomez there, I'd be a bit more comfortable. I'm also worried about the left, Tim. People are talking about. Well, I've seen. I watched the game yesterday. Past few games with the eye test. I feel like Robertson's not up to it 100% defensively. I feel like, we talk about Trent being caught too high up the pitch. Yesterday, there were quite a few instances where Robertson was caught too high up the pitch or pressing at the wrong time, being exposing Kwanzaa on that left side. Obviously, when Virgil came in, it's a bit more secure. But like against a team like Man City, you can't mistime that press and leave that kind of gap there. So obviously the talking point here is who would we have at right back, but I feel like I'm as nervous on that left flank.
So who would you play on the left?
No. I'd still play Robertson, but then I'm very concerned as to his when to attack, when to stay back.
Okay, because I thought for a second you were gonna say Costas or something.
No.
There is not a day on this planet I consider Costas to be more better than Robertson when both are available.
No. Just bringing up the concern for Robertson. Because...
Yeah, I don't know. Some of those are like positioning by Kwanzaa as well. When you look back, here's the thing: Van Dijk is a lot more comfortable in stepping up to cut that pass, whereas Kwanzaa, I feel like, does not want to step up and let that ball go behind him. He would rather like wait. Whereas Van Dijk picks his moments, like he'll say, I'm going to defend this and contain this guy, or I'm going to intercept that pass and like step up to him right away, kind of an ordeal. But Ryan says Gomez will be starting at center back, which I guess is a possibility.
Yeah.
Do not trust Kwanzaa in this game. But I can see Kwanzaa at center. If Kwanzaa is playing, then definitely Gomez is playing, I would say, next to him at right back. For midfields, are we going Endo, Max, Szoboszlai?
For sure. Yeah, Endo, right? Max, Szoboszlai. Elliott, as good as he's been way better coming off the bench in case we need something there. So, and he's been run ragged, right? So he kind of needs like a bit more games coming off the bench and everything. So yeah, Endo, Max, Szoboszlai for me. I'd start Salah.
Yeah, I think like seeing him coming 50 minutes got me hopeful as well. I just don't know what the physios say. Like, does he have 90 minutes in him? Because I do want him definitely going against United the next weekend too. So I can see us maybe starting with Gakpo and bringing him in at halftime or 60 or something like that, depending on the game goes. Sparky says the guys will be up for it. I honestly, I'm sure the guys will be up for it because they know this is a big game. And I think some of the things yesterday are, whether you like it or not, it is looking ahead a little bit as well, especially once we got the lead. I think more importantly, I think Anfield will be up for it. This is a game. It's almost like a European night. Let's face it. Like there are games where Anfield is more Anfield against, and they will be against the home game against Burnley or something like that. I mean, the crowd will be up for it. The fact that it's City, the scope of the game and stuff like that, I feel like it's going to be a lot more. The atmosphere will be a lot better than just like an average Anfield game, which is still a good atmosphere, obviously, but I think it will be like another level, and that kind of like translates onto the guys on the pitch too. But having said all that, and I'm sure like we'll find out more, and then obviously we'll be here for the pre-match once the lineup comes up on Sunday. What do you expect for an early prediction?
Well, before we go there, Tim, I believe you didn't say, would you start Gomez as a center back or would you have him as a right back?
If Konate is out, I'm probably starting Kwanzaa with Gomez at right back.
Yeah, I'd
Because I don't want
probably.
to do Kwanzaa Bradley. I don't want to do Gomez Bradley. So I think I'm doing Kwanzaa and
Yeah,
Gomez.
and I don't. As great as Gomez has been, I feel like the flanks are his position now, right or left back. I don't see him as a center back anymore.
Oh, I
People are.
think in that, desperate times, desperate measures, I
Yeah,
think he would still play there. I think right now he's probably your fourth center back, and that's because he fills in everywhere else. But now that those guys are going to come back, I think he comes back into the picture. He can end up being your third center back, to be honest, and go over Kwanzaa.
yeah, but then if I know I'm looking ahead here, but then if we get the Matip replacement next season, assuming he's
Man, you're
probably.
all about next season today, man.
Yeah, but then I've been kind of encouraged by the news about Michael Edwards coming in, but then that's a conversation for another time. If we bring in the Matip replacement next season, we'll have Van Dijk, Konate, Kwanzaa, and potential replacements. That's 4 CBs. I don't think Gomez gets in that conversation.
He's
Like you
going to
said,
be a defensive midfielder. We already covered this.
okay. Okay. All right, let's move on to predictions.
And then in the depth chart, Trent is going to be behind him in the defensive midfield.
Like he'd be above him. If we're going by my logic, yeah.
Nunez double 2-1 says Sparky. What do you have?
1-0.
Really? You're thinking like a cagey one, huh?
A cagey one where we get. I think the scorer is just going to be someone unexpected. I feel like that's how these games kind of go, where we always talk about the Haalands, the Salahs, the Nunez's, the Alvarez's and all. But I feel like it's going to come from a random person. I'd say 1-0 Endo.
Wow, damn,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm going for a wild one on this one. I think both defenses are kind of, especially like if you don't have Konate and stuff like that. I go with the 3-2. So he's going with the Timuchin special. I go with the 3-2. I'm already telling you it's going to be a Timuchin special. They're going to make it 3-2, and it's going to be a squeaky bum time for like the last 5 to 8 minutes over there, but we squeak in the 3-2 win, which would be huge. And then, like I say, you already set yourself up to be able to rotate on Thursday and take on United. Then you go to the international break and hopefully get a bunch of your guys back and finish the season with a bang. But having said all that, just because of the last part I said, I am content with a draw out of this game. I'm not going to be like, when are we going to score? When are we going to score? I'm just going to be like, I'm okay with a 0-0 if that's how it ends up.
Yeah, the fact that City and Arsenal still face each other is massive for me. And obviously, there's still quite a bit of the season left. People keep saying it. I didn't believe it until now, but then 3/4 of the season have passed. And I would agree that City is not the machine. They're a bit more human now. Like they're still extremely good, but they're a bit more human now. So you'd probably fancy them to drop like a point or two towards the end of this run in. So it's not the end of the world for a draw. I'd take it. I wouldn't
necessarily. Huge if Brentford pulls some ridiculous shit tomorrow, and then that will make Sunday's game even bigger. And especially if you win, it would then will really have people going off the rails over here, I would think, if that happens. But let's hope for the best. So what you didn't give us? Oh, you did it 1-0 is what your score.
Endo goal.
With an Endo goal to boot. Okay. But we'll be here for the pre-match. So thanks for always watching, following, commenting. Give us a like, subscribe. And as I always say, grab a friend by the ears and have him give us a follow as well. Do not forget about the Patreon thing. Even if it's like $1 tier, you'll get like a good taste of what's to come. So, and the shout out, like Alan Walnut got today. So thanks again, Alan. I know Sir Z is in that gang as well. So join the group, join the gang, and we will be here. Join us, most importantly, on Sunday as we get ready for the big game. So we'll be here right after the lineup is announced. I think there's a bunch of us online as well. So until then, have an excellent Friday. Have a peaceful, quiet Saturday. But then get your butt in here on Sunday. So have a great weekend, people. Take care.
Take care, guys.